Hi, you're listening to Breaking Up with Corporate, where quitting the rat race doesn't mean losing your mind. It means finding your purpose. We're your hosts. My name is Alex Murray.
My name is Susan Tressetti. Two women who ditched the suits, burned the handbooks, and built businesses that fed our souls.
Each episode, we bring you powerful stories from people who have made the pivot, left the grind behind to chase something bigger.
The road isn't easy, but it's worth it. So grab your coffee, your courage, and let's break up with corporate together.
I'm Alex. I'm the owner of Unleash You Coaching. I'm a business coach, and I left the corporate world 18 months ago after 10 years in corporate.
And my name's Susan, and I'm the owner of Dragonfly Realty. I'm a real estate agent and property manager. I left the corporate world 2 years ago after 30 years in the business.
Breaking Up with Corporate will share stories from individuals who have left the corporate world to pursue passion, purpose, entrepreneurship, and a more fulfilling career. We aim to inspire others through honest, respectful, and empowering conversations. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Breaking Up with Corporate. I am Alex Murray with Unleash You Coaching, and I have with me my co-host, Susan Tressetti with Dragonfly Realty, and she is going to introduce our guest today.
Hi, our guest today is Randy Oest. Randy and I are not only friends, but we also worked together for many years at the University of Pittsburgh on the web team. So I'm pretty excited to have Randy here today. Randy Oest is the owner and principal at Amazing Rando Design. With 25 years of experience making the internet look good, especially for big universities and enterprise clients, he's done design work for the likes of Yale, Stanford, NYU, Pitt, and Columbia, and was a founding lead of Emulsify, the open source design system now running on thousands of Drupal sites worldwide. Through his consulting, he helps complex organizations turn messy problems into clean, scalable digital experiences. Welcome, Randy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Susan, I was really happy when you reached out for me to be on the show. I'm excited to talk about my journey today.
Yes, we are super excited. Like, wow, what an amazing bio. So, Randy, can you kind of just tell us about your background, where you got started, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So starting at the very beginning to make this a nice long story, I started in art school going for a cartooning degree because I was going to illustrate comic books. And while I was there, I realized that that wasn't going to like really allow me to afford a life that I wanted. Like doing comic books was a thrill, but I saw graphic designers and what they were making. And so in the middle of art school, I kind of pivoted a little bit. I went into graphic design. And that's whenever I got at the University of Pittsburgh and really got into like doing that kind of work. This was the early aughts. And I realized that the web was this burgeoning, growing thing. This is before Web 2.0. And so I was like, you know what? I want to be in on this web thing. And so that's whenever I partnered up with Susan and we did some really amazing things for Pitt and began doing and working on websites and creating those. And, so I did about 10 years at the University of Pittsburgh doing a lot of high profile websites for them. Then I went to an agency in Indianapolis called Williams Randall Marketing, where I helped Indiana State Tourism, Indiana Power and Light, one of their local car wash companies, Mike's Car Wash, which is a huge car washing company in the Indianapolis area, helping those businesses connect with their customers in ways that centered around digital. And then I spent about 5 years there doing websites for them. And then I got hired on at Four Kitchens, where I became creative director. I led a team of creative staff doing UX and design and content work. We won many awards. In fact, one of the projects that I was creative director and designer on was up for a Webby Award. It was in the same category as Spotify Wrapped. So I lost to Spotify Wrapped, but just to be shoulder and shoulder with Spotify's design team was really nice. And now, as of about a year ago, I've gone out on my own and I'm having a great deal of success here. One of the most recent things that I've worked on is Civic Match, which is an app from Work for America that connects people in government who are looking for government jobs. And so not only is that something that like I'm very proud of the work that I did for that, I'm also very proud of what I'm putting out into the world, like helping people find jobs in this economy. So it's been an adventure. Like there are all sorts of ups and downs and hills and valleys along the way, but I'm very excited to be where I am today, a solopreneur.
Yeah. So if I heard you right, how long have you been a solo entrepreneur?
I've been a solo entrepreneur for about a year now, which is both true and untrue. So
Okay.
so here's the thing. So I parted ways with Four Kitchens. Last February was about the time when that happened. I continued to do freelance work for them, but my full-time employment was done. But really the story starts about like 15 years earlier. I was working at that agency in Indianapolis, and the agency was going one way and I was going another way. Like I wanted to stay in the realm of digital, and the agency was focusing on television spots and radio spots, and it was really working for the agency, and I'm very happy for them. But that's not where I wanted to be. And so I started applying for jobs, but what I also did was I started reaching out and talking to people about doing freelance work. And so like in nights and weekends, I would do work for companies. And at one point, I was doing freelance work for like $1 billion healthcare company out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as I was doing this as a side hustle. And like this was, I was like, listen, I'm either going to get a job at a company that I like, or I'm going to go out on my own. And I got a job at a company I liked, Four Kitchens, a company that I always wanted to work for because I had heard good things about. And so I was like, I'm going to go ahead and set aside all of this freelance and take a job. But I held on to that company that I started because I actually I incorporated as an LLC and learned a lot about business in that short time that I was freelancing on the side, like sending invoices, following up on invoices, following up again on invoices, but also like sales and talking to people and communicating, really well. And at Four Kitchens, I kind of let that go to the side, and I applied a lot of that learning that I had to my role as creative director at Four Kitchens, where I would go out and I would help, biz dev is everybody's business sort of thing, and grow business. And honestly, about a year before I was let go at Four Kitchens, before they dissolved my team, I was starting to get the itch again and starting to be like, I think it's getting to be about time to go out on my own. There's a lot going on in the industry right now. I can provide like agency talent at, solopreneur prices. Like it would be very like valuable for me to do that. And I started considering that. I had even like approached my former boss about, hey, what if we spun up like a subsidiary like company to represent these sorts of things? And that was something that didn't get followed through on. But here I am now. I'm doing my own thing and really enjoying it.
Yeah. So what was the biggest challenge for you going from working, with the bigger company of your, that you've always wanted to work for, to transitioning into entrepreneurship?
Sure. The biggest challenge is that whenever you're an entrepreneur, especially a small one, you have to wear many hats and you have to do all of those things yourself. Well, you either have to do them yourself or pay someone to do them. And whenever you're small, you may not have the revenue to pay someone to do them. So you have to kind of be pick and choose. Like, I pay someone to do my taxes because I don't want to mess that up, but my marketing I do myself, And so the biggest challenge is knowing all of these things. Like, how do you invoice? How do you what's the right, like, when's the right time to follow up on an invoice that's late? It's like, you don't want to be like, hey, this is 2 days late and be a jerk. But at the same time, if you're net 30, net 45, it's like, I've already waited like this amount of time, like let's talk about turnaround, and how do you approach that, how do you handle that in a professional manner, and just all of those sorts of like the small little details. Like, for instance, my approach to marketing is I post on LinkedIn like 3 to 5 times a week. I just post, honestly, whatever kind of comes to my mind. Like, I want to just constantly be talking about things that are interesting, conversations that I've had, I'll pull together and post. And, there have been times whenever I've gone like a week and a half without posting, and I'm like, oh, I have to keep posting to keep attention on me, to keep like, to keep these things going, because I have people who reach out to me through that. Also, yeah. So like there's that. There's also like the networking, and these are skills that if you're an entrepreneur, you have to build. You have to go out and talk and do the sales stuff, and you have to be comfortable with it. And that was one of the big hurdles that I had to overcome. But like I said, I started it about 15 years ago, and that's when I learned those powerful lessons about that. Now that I've gone out on my own after having tested the water also all those years ago, I am now confident, and I'm not getting over those hurdles again. I have no problem sending a large invoice to someone for work that's valuable for them.
Yeah.
And actually, Randy, your LinkedIn posts are what made me think about, oh, we should get Randy on this, because he's out on his own now, So I go to LinkedIn a lot to find people that I've known over the years for this podcast. And, I do read all your posts. You're doing a good job on LinkedIn, because it brought you to mind for me.
Awesome.
Randy, you talk about wearing all the hats when you're first starting out as an entrepreneur and figuring out all the things. Do you have any advice there on how you balance it, or how you found some balance to it?
So one of the important things is to like listen to the energy that flows through you. I know it sounds wishy-washy. Just bear with me. But we all have like active times when things, we're ready to take on certain challenges. Like for me, like a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, I wake up, I'm ready to clean the house. And if I get derailed from cleaning the house, I don't want to do it in the afternoon. It still needs to be done, and sometimes I can force myself to do it, but I bring that thinking to the work that I have to do as a businessman. And that is that I know that I need to post, so I need to figure out like when's a good time for me to post. When do I have the energy or the time? And so like for me, that's in the morning, because my morning routine, I sit down at my computer and I actually have a folder in my browser that I go through like notes that I've taken on books. Like I get little flashcards, 5 of them a day. I have a series of like incoming like RSS feeds that I read or skim just to understand what's going on with the industry. And then whenever I'm done with that, usually I've got like some ideas in my head. And so then I write, and I write my post, and then I either post it or schedule it. And then I go about my day, and it fits right there in that routine. And so all of those things that are challenging, find the right place for them. Like maybe it's setting up the tasks that you don't want to do for a like Friday afternoon. Like say like Friday at noon, I'm going to do all of my administrative tasks, and as soon as my administrative tasks are done, I'm gone for the weekend. And so, maybe that's the way to approach it, because then it's like you literally want to get those done as quick as possible because you have like something that you're trying to go for. So instead of trying to get the energy up on a Monday morning to handle that admin stuff, maybe it's a nice reward that like if you get it all done by Friday, on Friday, you can like let yourself leave early and feel guilt-free. So it's about managing those flows and what works for you.
Yeah. I love that. That's such
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take some notes on that.
Unfortunately, I work the weekends most of the time, so Monday is my admin day, but I might tell myself I can leave early. So that's a good thing.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. I mean, I end up working on the weekends as well. Like I'm always trying to like get ahead a little bit more, but that's also balanced because sometimes in the week, like I take a little bit of extra time. my daughter has a lot of sporting events that she goes to, and I take her to them. And so like the flexibility that I have, like at between like 3:30 and 5 o'clock, a couple of days a week, it's like, I take no meetings because I'm driving my daughter around. And I trade that willingly for those, like, 3 or 4 hours on the weekend that I do.
Yeah. So you said you reading books. Do you have any book that you would recommend for someone just starting out to be an entrepreneur? What was a book that you found to be very helpful to you?
That's a great question. So I actually have my read book list here. Let's see. I think it's called, for some reason, it is not coming up in my book list. I believe it's called The Challenger Sale. Let me just confirm. Yes. Okay, so there's a book called The Challenger Sale. And The Challenger Sale was pretty formative, for my sales like technique experience, because what it really is it's a book that, experts on sales went through and they found like what different types of sales like techniques are there, and they break it down into the different types. And the one that seems to be the most successful is the Challenger Sale. Basically, it's the one that gets to know what the client needs, challenges the client on what they need, and show them that they can demonstrate what it is that they need. So, like, an example of that is, let's say, for instance, a client comes to me and they're like, listen, we want a design system. We have 5 different websites within our brand. We want 5 different design systems. I would push back and I would say, listen, we can do 5 different design systems if that's what you want, but that support is going to be really tough. You're going to be supporting 5 different things. You're going to be paying 5 times the amount of work. Let's make one system that can switch between them, and it will cost you 3 times instead of 5 times, but it will work for all 5 and allow expandability into the future. So what I would, the challenger aspect there is me like understanding their needs and giving them a better answer to what they need and showing them the value of it, saying like, instead of paying 5 times for this, you're going to pay 3 times for this, and it's going to be more valuable to you. And so that's, demonstrating value. And then you kind of walk them through the rest of the sales process. So it's that book, The Challenger Sale, really like informed my sales process.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. And who's that written by?
Goodness.
Right.
That's it.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Well, let's see. It came up whenever I typed in Challenger Sale. Let me do Challenger Sale Amazon and get you the name. It's of Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson.
Okay.
Yes, it is The Challenger Sale, Taking Control of the Customer Conversation. It is, it's a great book.
Okay, awesome. We're going to have to add that. We're going to have to get like a whole book list going, I think.
I think so. We've heard some great books that we've never heard of. We had a guest on that told me that she read a book that a realtor wrote, and me being a realtor, I'd never heard of it, but she has a kitchen and design company, and it helped her to build to 7 figures.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to always be, something that is just under your business.
Speaking of that, like, I'm working my way through this book right now, Unreasonable Hospitality. This is a book. The author, Will Guidara, he is in the restaurant business, and he talks about customer service and why the best customer service really creates customers for life. This book takes it and presents it in a way that all businesses can use. But I'm really, really enjoying this book because I like being hospitable. So like, I want good service is good UX, and good UX is what I do. So, having books, like, that's one thing that I find that within the like tech industry that I'm in, sometimes people can be a little bit myopic and have tunnel vision and think like, I only have to look at what Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, what these companies are doing. But the reality is that there are many, many different successful businesses and verticals out there that you can look to for inspiration and get a lot of pull from. Like another Another book that I'm going through right now is $100 Million Money Models by Alex Hormozy. You've probably heard his name before. I'm sure it comes up all the time. But I'm like, all of the stuff that's in there, I'm like, this is foundational. And it lets me like put together my estimates in ways that like I can better serve clients. And it's great. And it allows me to, as a business, thrive. Okay. I was just thinking before this call, I'm like, I only have this one in print. I'm like, I need the other ones in print.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're all great. I
she's
love
got 3 of them there, so.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love his he expands on all of those, the leads, the models, the sales. He definitely has a way to expand your way of thinking on all of those. So the way he shares his knowledge for free, love it. Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of go back a little bit if you don't mind. You talked about, posting on LinkedIn and having a strategy behind that, networking, all of those things. Has there been, as you started your entrepreneurship journey, has there been a thing or several things that have helped you really been successful that you can point to that you would recommend people start or do more of that has helped you launch your business?
This is I view this as foundational, and it's so simple that I think that a lot of people gloss over it. But I think that communicating quickly and communicating effectively are like just incredibly important. So what I mean by that is that whenever a client sends you a message or someone sends you a message, to respond back fairly quickly, to not like let it sit or let it linger, because the more that it lingers, the longer the problem sits there. If you respond quickly, even if it's just to say, like, hey, I acknowledge that I got this really long email from you. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I want to let you know that it's important and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Like, that is incredibly important because that tells the person that they are important to you. And that is good customer service. And good customer service always improves a business. I also think that when writing like emails, Slack messages, what have you, I avoid like pronouns or like indeterminate language. I prefer to be specific. Like, for instance, if I'm replying to a message, I'll be like, and XY page, this is what I did, instead of saying, like, in the Figma file, I did this, because there may be multiple files. There may be multiple things. There may be multiple people. And so instead of saying, like, I made the changes that she requested, I'll say I made the changes that Susan requested. And it's a small thing, but it's a thing that whenever you're working asynchronously, like when you're working remotely, that is incredibly valuable because you don't know what context people have. Like, they may just be reading the latest like Slack message in a thread. And when you say exactly what you did and name names, it helps those people who are skimming because they better know what's going on instead of needing to hunt for other things.
Yeah.
And the very last thing that I'll add onto this is with communication. I very much believe in the like bluff pattern of writing, BLUF, best line up front, so that like the first thing that people read is the main thing that you want them to respond to or take away. Like, there's nothing worse than burying questions after a couple of paragraphs that never get answered, and then you have to reply back again and saying, like, hey, you didn't respond to my questions. And so like by including it up front, it makes it much easier to like, get the answers that you need.
Yeah, I love that. I can see where your UX comes in and the customer comes in first for you and all of that. And it's funny because we were like talking earlier about how to put, the customer first, and we deal a lot in referrals, right? And how that response time is so important, right?
Right. Yeah, she had to hear me vent this morning about a vendor that I get asked for a lot of help from different types of vendors. And if I give you a lead, I want you to follow up with me and tell me, did you do it? And because I'm going to ask that customer, how did it go? Did you like what you saw and things like that? Because, they don't understand it's my reputation too that's on the line
Mm-hmm.
when I refer you. And
Yeah.
it was very frustrating for me last week that I wasn't getting responses from people that I gave work to. It was like they were doing me a favor, and I'm like, "You're the one making the money, not me."
Yeah.
So it was frustrating, and so poor Alex had to hear that.
No, but it's right. It's so important to like if especially I think if somebody's handing you a lead or a customer or somebody is reaching out, I couldn't agree more that like that response time, especially in today's world, I mean, I think it's expected too to reach out or to at least let them know like, hey, I'm going to get to you as soon as possible.
I have a policy that like if someone who doesn't typically get me work. So for instance, like if I don't know, if it's normal channels, I don't do this. But if it's someone like directly saying like, "Hey, I'm connecting you with this project," I have a policy of giving that person 5% of the project, as a thank you for bringing work to me because like just like you, my work is referrals, like that's the biggest part. And if someone sends me work, I want to say thank you. Like if they don't want the money, I'll donate it to a charity, that's fine. But like I want to give them 5% because that puts me on the hook to make sure that I've got a good relationship with the person coming with work for me, because I want them to pay for my services and enjoy my services, and just kind of helps formalize that kind of like connection. And also I just want people bringing me work. So
Yeah. No, I love that. That's a
Yeah.
great thing to add. Is there anything in your journey so far that you wish you had known sooner?
That's a great question. It's hard to say what I wish I knew sooner. I know what it is. So there are lots of things that I wish I knew like earlier, but we all learn the things that we learn because like information is not evenly distributed in the world. But the thing that I wish that I would have learned earlier is just how valuable the talents that I have are. Like I've always known that I'm very good at the work that I do, but for some reason I was always kind of holding myself back from going and pursuing something on my own, like that little like dipping my toe in the water back when I was at the agency in Indianapolis and doing some freelance work. Like that was rewarding, and it made me like realize how valuable I actually was. And then I ended up, getting a job, and that kind of started to kind of settle back down. But in my most recent round in this solopreneur for the last year is realizing that I am very good at what I do, and that a lot of companies can benefit from hiring me, and that like, I need to hold like myself to the standard that I know that I can deliver. And so that's been the thing that like I've been learning this last year as like, you know, I accepted like small little project work, and then I also accepted like very large project work. And I'm like, oh, I should be focusing on the large project work because that's really where that's the level of my expertise. And so like, that's what I wish I would have learned earlier, is that like, I'm valuable. I provide value to my clients, and that's something I think anyone who wants to take the entrepreneur's journey kind of, that's one of the things that they need to realize, is that they are valuable, and they just have to kind of take that step forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I know you, I was kind of filling in Alex about you. And I said, Randy was like one of the first people that came up to me my first day and introduced himself, said, "This is what I do. Anything I can do to help you." That stuck with me, first off. Second off, I said, Randy is one of those unique people that I have a technical brain. I'm not artistic at all. Randy has both of those sides of his brains working, and it's just amazing to see the work that you put out, that you can help, and you also understand the technical side. So sometimes you can do the technical, or at least work with the technical people and say, why don't we try and do this? I've never come across anyone else that has both sides of their brains working like that. So you told me there's a name for that, and I told her, I said, I forgot what the name is, but that's what Randy does.
I don't know what the name is either, but,
Yeah,
or at least if I knew it at one point, my brain's just gone.
you did know because you gave me it. I said, oh, I wanted to look that up this morning. I said, Alex, do you know? And she's like, no, but
I think it's like left brain, right brain kind of thinking, where like left brain is creativity and right brain is logic. I may have those swapped. But yeah, no, my brain definitely like functions on both of those levels. And I really enjoy like kind of bouncing back and forth and going back and forth. And it's proven pretty valuable. So I'm really glad. And you mentioned one thing that's very important to me is that like my coming up to you and introducing myself and saying what I do and making you feel welcome, that's very important to me because like I want to make the world a better place in large and small ways. And to hear that echoed back to me here years later, I'm so glad that that had a good impact.
Yeah.
And that I still remember it. I mean, most people, they have to make an impression. That's how Alex and I really got together is she had given me a gift, and I don't know that Alex and I would have connected the way we did, but she thanked me for all I do for other people. And it was very impactful. So we had a guest last week that said, I had known that person too, and he said, you have to appreciate when people say thank you. That they're putting themselves out there. You remember those people that come back later and say you did this for me or something, and it's like, wow, you didn't even half the time you probably don't even know you did, but it made an impact. So for me, definitely the saying thank you and impact is something I really like to continue doing.
Randy, you mentioned that you had a moment where you realized you provided value and that you could do those big projects, and that's where your value really lied. I think I also heard you say that maybe you started out with the smaller project and you realized you could do where you really could do was the major projects. What was the moment where you kind of realized or had the courage, or what gave you the courage to finally, instead of just dipping your toe, go full in on yourself? Like, was there something that changed in your belief systems, or something, a project that happened, or what really gave you the courage to do that?
So honestly, I think the what gave me the courage to do it was one of the people that I worked with at the agency in Indianapolis reached out to me whenever I started being a solopreneur. And apparently, she had the same experience, Susan, that you had with me, and just remembered me favorably. And so saw me on LinkedIn and needed someone to do a website. Like they're a marketing person, but they needed a website done for this large organization. And the budget for the project was like $300,000 or something like that. And they're like, we want you to bid on this. And I'm like, okay, it's just me, right? And she's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, all right, great. So I bid on the project, and I didn't get the project, but I didn't get the project because all sorts of tomfoolery behind the scenes. But had that tomfoolery not happened, I would have won that project, and it blew my mind that that was in the realm of possibility. And so that made me realize, like, whoa, I am seriously undervaluing what I can do and what I can accomplish. And, from there on out, I just, I've started to right size things. And here's the thing. It's not about like getting more money, getting more money, getting more money. It's about making sure that what I'm earning is commensurate with the value that's being provided. What I mean by that is that like when people work with me, they're confident that everything's going to get done, everything's going to give them the results that they want, and they're going to feel really good about paying that price for it. That's really where like the sweet spot is. Like I have a client right now. We launched a site on Friday. Never launch a site on Fridays, but we launched a site on Friday. And the client's like I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like let me know what overages are. Let me know what overages are. And I was just like, I'm like, listen, I said our agreed to price is good for me. Like I'm not going to charge you overages despite the fact that you're basically begging me to like penalize you. I'm like, my cost for this is good. I'm very happy with this, even with, the extra things that needed to happen. And that's because I'm not trying to be greedy. I'm just trying to make sure that what I'm earning is commensurate with the value of what my clients are getting. And so it's nice to be able to do that, to be able to say like, to be able to do something like that, as opposed to with some of the smaller projects where things are like real small. I don't have room to go the extra mile for anybody.
And people are going to remember that you did that. It's not like you said, it's not about the money. It's that you wanted to do a good job for them and you didn't want the money to be a determining factor at that point.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's about the relationships, and it comes back to like, wanting to know people. Like one of the first questions that you asked me in this podcast was like, how do you evaluate something that's incoming? How do you evaluate the business? And like, you look at the people and, you try to make a connection. Like, am I dealing with someone who has been at that university for 16 years? Or am I dealing with someone who's been at the university for 2 years? I work with a lot of university clients, but and that tells me a difference, because someone who has been there longer has certain patterns, as opposed to someone who's been there for 2 years after working at other places. And so I kind of start to understand where they're coming from, and I'm able to address their unique concerns.
Randy, is there anything that we have not asked you, or any part of your story that you would like to share about your journey at this point?
What I would share is not necessarily anything about my journey, because I think we've covered a lot. I mean, there's plenty of like stories and skeletons that we could share, but listen, I'm not here to share those, in a live podcast. But what I do want to say is that anyone who's listening to this, who's considering entrepreneurship, who's considering going into business for themselves, I want you to know that that is something that you can dip your toes into and experiment with. You don't even need to spin up an LLC. I mean, you can, it's probably for the best, but you don't have to. Just begin trying out the different things that you want and make it a side hustle. Give it so much time. If you're in a position where you can, talk to your bosses and be like, hey, I want to go from 5 days a week to 4 days a week because I'm trying out this other like business. Is this something that can happen? Some businesses, that would be great, because it would allow them to reduce their overhead while keeping their staff. Because we know that a lot of businesses right now are trying to kind of right size everything. I would just say it's worth trying out. Like, you don't have to jump both feet in. You can kind of like glide into the pool a little bit and see how you like it.
Yeah.
I always say definitely do it as a side hustle, because you might think that this is what I really want to do. And then you start doing it and thinking, wow, why did I even think that I could do this? It's not something I'm even happy with. And then you think about something else. But that is one thing I tell everybody is make sure you do it first, because there's a lot of people that'll say, I want to have this business, and they've never even worked in that business. And it's like they have no clue what's involved in doing that. So I think that's great advice. And I think it's resonated with pretty much a lot of our other guests that they started while they were still working somewhere else.
Absolutely. So Randy, what's next for you? What is 3 or 4 years down the road for you and your business?
Sure. So 3 or 4 years down the road, what I think my business is going to look like, I think I'm probably going to end up having like 1 or 2 staff members, just to be able to kind of like keep some throughput going. I also think that there's going to be some software as a service built as well. I'm working on a couple of different side ideas for something like that to help, differentiate the income streams. Like, I'm really good at building websites and apps. Why can't I do that for myself? So I've got some of those going. So what I'm hoping is in 3 to 4 years, maybe have 2 to 3 people working for me, have like 1 to 2 like software as a service, SaaS things going that's also bringing in some money, and just kind of keeping it small. I'm not looking to be a $1 billion unicorn or anything like that. I want to keep it small. I want to keep it good. And I want to keep the customer service up and just keep the quality good.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell us what you're doing now. I guess tell people how they can reach you, who can work with you, who are you looking for, and just what you're up to now.
Absolutely. Here's the deal. Anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to have a conversation with you because I love talking to people. And you can find me on my website, which is amazingrando.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn under Randy Oest. And you can reach out to me on both of those platforms. And I'm happy to talk about your needs. I am best suited to help companies that are looking for custom design or design systems work. Generally, these are like medium to large size organizations, usually higher education, but I've also done other work with like enterprise, and I'm happy to help them out as well. I am also happy to do like custom work on smaller websites as well, for businesses that are probably like medium to large size, not like enterprise large size, but like, like 50 employees or more kind of situation. I'm happy to do UX work. I'm also an excellent facilitator. I can bring people into alignment, help generate ideas, help figure out where you need to go, and put together a plan on how to get there. So basically all of those different things.
Very cool. Susan, do you have any?
No, I was going to say that sounds great. Like I said, we're really glad you joined us today. I think people will really resonate with what you said. And the goal is to help you, help others, and to learn a little bit ourselves. So I think you've accomplished all of those today.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Randy, so much for being on our podcast today. And we can't wait to share what you inspired all of us today with. And thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
This is the beginning of your next chapter.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Up with Corporate. Be sure to subscribe and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Until then, remember, you don't have to do this alone.